In our fast-paced world, where stress and emotional challenges seem to constantly surround us, finding peace and emotional balance can often feel like an impossible task. But what if there was a way to transform our responses to life's pressures? What if we could train ourselves to remain calm, grounded, and peaceful, no matter what storms rage around us? Today, we're diving deep into the profound teachings of Buddhism, offering practical methods to help you regain control over your emotions and maintain inner peace, no matter the chaos. Buddhism teaches that our emotional responses are not inherently wrong but are shaped by our perceptions and attachments. From this perspective, emotions are not problems to be eradicated but signals guiding us to the root of our suffering. At the core of Buddhist teachings is the idea of mindfulness, a powerful tool to gain control over our emotions. Mindfulness isn't just about being present in the moment, it's about observing our thoughts, feelings, and reactions without becoming entangled in them. By practicing mindfulness, we can begin to separate ourselves from the overwhelming grip of our emotions, allowing us to act with clarity and wisdom instead of being driven by reactive impulses. One of the key principles in Buddhism that aids in emotional control is the practice of detachment. This doesn't mean ignoring or suppressing our feelings, but rather understanding that we are not our emotions. By observing our feelings without judgment or attachment, we create space between ourselves and the emotional waves that often throw us off balance. This allows us to experience emotions fully without being consumed by them. Detachment helps us understand that emotions come and go like clouds in the sky, nothing is permanent. By embracing this impermanence, we can learn not to cling to negative emotions and instead allow them to pass freely. Another crucial aspect of maintaining emotional balance in Buddhism is the practice of compassion, not just toward others but also toward ourselves. In a world that often demands perfection, we can be our harshest critics, especially when we experience emotional upheaval. However, Buddhism teaches us to approach ourselves with kindness and compassion. Instead of berating ourselves for feeling stressed, anxious, or upset, we learn to treat ourselves with the same understanding and empathy we would offer a close friend. This self-compassion strengthens our emotional resilience and allows us to navigate challenging moments with greater ease. Furthermore, Buddhism provides specific meditation techniques to help calm the mind and regain emotional equilibrium. One such practice is breath awareness meditation. By focusing on our breath, we can anchor ourselves in the present moment, reducing anxiety and promoting a sense of inner stillness. With regular practice, this technique becomes a powerful tool for regaining control over our emotions in moments of stress. Other practices, such as loving kindness meditation, cultivate positive emotions and help us connect with the warmth of our own hearts, fostering a sense of peace and equanimity in the face of life's trials. Incorporating these Buddhist practices into your daily routine can transform how you respond to the world around you. Whether you're facing a difficult situation at work, a personal challenge, or just the everyday stress of life, the tools of mindfulness, detachment, and compassion can help you maintain a deep sense of peace. The journey to emotional mastery is not instantaneous, but with dedication and practice, it is entirely within your reach. By embracing these Buddhist principles, we can all learn to maintain calmness and emotional clarity, regardless of the external circumstances. So, stay tuned as we explore more of these profound techniques, and start applying them in your life today to experience the transformative power of mindfulness and emotional detachment. Together, we'll learn how to face life's challenges with grace, wisdom, and unwavering inner peace. Mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools we can use to master our emotions and maintain a sense of calm in the face of life's challenges. At its core, mindfulness is the art of being fully present in the moment. It's about observing our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment or attachment. This practice, deeply rooted in Buddhist philosophy, teaches us not to push away or deny our emotions but to acknowledge them with awareness and acceptance. In today's fast-paced world, where we are constantly bombarded with distractions, mindfulness offers a way to step back, breathe, and center ourselves in the here and now. Buddhism emphasizes that our emotional turmoil often stems from our reactions to situations rather than the situations themselves. When we encounter stress, anger, fear, or sadness, our immediate reaction is often to latch onto those emotions, allowing them to dictate our behavior and thoughts. Mindfulness offers us an alternative approach. Instead of reacting impulsively, we pause, take a deep breath, and observe the emotion without becoming entangled in it. By practicing mindfulness, we begin to notice the patterns in our thoughts and emotions, helping us understand their origins and how they shape our responses. What makes mindfulness so effective in controlling emotions is its ability to create space between stimulus and reaction. When we become mindful of our thoughts and feelings, we can separate ourselves from them, allowing us to respond consciously rather than reacting automatically. For example, when faced with a stressful situation at work, instead of immediately feeling overwhelmed or defensive, mindfulness allows us to pause and observe the emotions that arise. We can acknowledge the frustration or anxiety without letting it control us, and then choose a response that aligns with our values and goals. This practice not only fosters emotional control but also empowers us to navigate life with greater clarity and wisdom. Buddhism teaches that emotions, like all things, are impermanent. When we become mindful of our emotions, we realize that no feeling is permanent, whether it's joy, sadness, anger, or anxiety. Emotions come and go like passing clouds. By embracing this impermanence, we can detach from the need to hold onto or resist our emotions. Instead of letting negative emotions consume us, we allow them to arise and pass naturally, without judgment. This doesn't mean we suppress or ignore our emotions. On the contrary, mindfulness invites us to fully experience them without allowing them to control us. An important aspect of mindfulness is non-judgment. Often, we judge ourselves harshly for feeling stressed, anxious, or upset, believing that these emotions are signs of weakness or failure. However, Buddhism teaches that emotions are not inherently good or bad, they are simply part of the human experience. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to observe our emotions without labeling them as good or bad. This shift in perspective allows us to cultivate a more compassionate relationship with ourselves. Rather than judging ourselves for feeling overwhelmed, we can acknowledge the feeling and let it pass, knowing that it does not define who we are. The Buddhist concept of mindfulness also encourages us to practice awareness of our breath. Our breath is a constant companion, yet we rarely pay attention to it. By focusing on our breath, we can anchor ourselves in the present moment, bringing our awareness back to the here and now. This practice is incredibly calming and effective in moments of stress. When we feel anxiety rising or our emotions starting to take control, we can simply turn our attention to our breath, slowing it down and bringing ourselves back to a place of inner peace. With practice, mindfulness becomes a powerful tool that we can use at any moment to regain emotional balance and clarity. Another profound aspect of mindfulness in Buddhism is its connection to compassion. When we are mindful, we not only cultivate awareness of our own emotions but also develop a deeper understanding of others' feelings. This awareness fosters empathy, allowing us to respond to others with kindness and compassion, rather than reacting impulsively. By practicing mindfulness, we can approach both our emotions and the emotions of others with greater understanding and patience, which ultimately leads to healthier, more harmonious relationships. Incorporating mindfulness into your daily life doesn't require hours of meditation or a drastic lifestyle change. Start by simply taking a few minutes each day to practice mindfulness. You can begin by sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, and observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. With time, you'll notice how your ability to detach from emotional reactions improves, and how your mind becomes clearer, more focused, and more peaceful. Mindfulness, as taught in Buddhism, is not just a practice, it's a way of life. By cultivating mindfulness, we can regain control over our emotions, allowing us to navigate life with greater ease, grace, and peace. In a world that constantly pulls us in different directions, mindfulness offers us a path back to the center, helping us maintain emotional balance and clarity in any situation. So, if you're looking to find more peace in your daily life, to control your emotional responses, and to experience a greater sense of calm, mindfulness may be the key you've been searching for. Stay with us as we explore more powerful tools from Buddhist teachings that can help you live a life of emotional mastery and inner peace. In our everyday lives, emotions can feel overwhelming and often take control of our actions, leading to moments of stress, frustration, or even despair. However, Buddhism offers a different perspective on emotions, one that encourages us to understand them as natural, impermanent phenomena that come and go, much like the weather. Instead of fighting against our emotions or allowing them to dictate our responses, Buddhism teaches us to view emotions with greater awareness and understanding. By doing so, we can free ourselves from the cycle of negative emotional reactions and experience a deeper sense of peace and emotional balance. At the heart of Buddhist philosophy is the idea that everything in life, including our emotions, is impermanent. This means that no emotion, whether positive or negative, lasts forever. Just as clouds drift across the sky, our emotions arise, persist for a time, and eventually dissipate. The key to emotional control lies in recognizing this impermanence. When we are mindful of the fleeting nature of our feelings, we can better navigate our emotional landscape without getting trapped in cycles of suffering. For example, when anger or frustration arises, we can acknowledge these feelings without letting them define us or dictate our actions. Rather than reacting impulsively, we allow ourselves the space to observe the emotion and let it pass, knowing that it will not last forever. Buddhism teaches us that when we overly identify with our emotions, we experience suffering. This identification happens when we believe that our emotions define who we are. We think, I am angry, or I am sad, and in doing so, we become attached to these emotions, believing them to be permanent parts of ourselves. This attachment creates unnecessary suffering because it leads us to hold onto emotions that are meant to be temporary. Buddhism encourages us to recognize that emotions are simply experiences that arise and fade away. They are not who we are, nor are they permanent. By recognizing this, we can detach ourselves from the need to hold onto or resist emotions, allowing them to pass naturally without causing distress. This understanding of emotions as fleeting and changeable is liberating. It empowers us to respond to emotions with awareness rather than reacting from a place of impulse. When we experience negative emotions such as anger, anxiety, or sadness, mindfulness helps us notice these feelings as they arise without judgment. Instead of pushing them away or getting lost in them, we observe them with curiosity and acceptance. We might ask ourselves, what am I feeling right now? Where is this emotion coming from? What is it trying to teach me? By taking this approach, we shift from being controlled by our emotions to becoming observers of them. This shift allows us to maintain a sense of calm and clarity, even in the midst of intense emotional experiences. Buddhism also teaches that the nature of our emotions is not inherently negative or positive. Emotions themselves are not the problem, it is our attachment to them that causes suffering. For example, when we experience joy or excitement, we might attach to that feeling and try to hold onto it, fearing its eventual loss. Similarly, when we feel pain or sadness, we may cling to these emotions, believing that they will never end. This attachment creates an internal struggle, as we try to either hold onto pleasant feelings or avoid unpleasant ones. Buddhism encourages us to let go of this attachment and embrace the impermanence of emotions. By doing so, we can experience emotions fully without becoming overwhelmed or consumed by them. One of the most powerful teachings in Buddhism is the practice of detachment, not from life itself, but from the need to control or manipulate our emotions. Detachment in Buddhism does not mean suppressing or ignoring feelings. It means acknowledging them without attachment, understanding that they will rise and fall like waves in the ocean. Just as we do not try to control the waves, we do not try to control our emotions. Instead, we accept them as part of the natural ebb and flow of life. This detachment allows us to experience emotions without letting them dictate our behavior or thoughts. It gives us the freedom to respond to emotions with wisdom and compassion, rather than with reactivity or fear. Another important aspect of Buddhist teachings on emotions is the cultivation of mindfulness in our daily lives. Through regular meditation and mindful awareness, we can train our minds to become more attuned to the present moment, which includes our emotional experiences. This mindfulness helps us notice when emotions arise, allowing us to respond with greater clarity and understanding. For instance, during a stressful situation at work or a conflict with a loved one, mindfulness allows us to pause, take a deep breath, and observe our emotions before reacting. By doing so, we create space between stimulus and reaction, giving us the ability to choose a more measured and thoughtful response. In addition, Buddhism teaches that emotional balance comes from cultivating compassion not only for others but also for ourselves. When we experience difficult emotions, we can be our own greatest critics. We may tell ourselves that we shouldn't feel angry or sad, or that we need to fix our emotions right away. But Buddhism encourages us to treat ourselves with the same compassion and understanding we would offer a close friend. Instead of judging ourselves harshly, we embrace our emotions with kindness and acceptance, allowing ourselves the time and space to process them without guilt or shame. This self-compassion fosters emotional resilience and helps us move through difficult emotions with greater ease. Ultimately, Buddhism teaches that our emotions are not something to be feared or suppressed, but something to be understood and embraced. By recognizing their impermanent nature, detaching from their grip, and responding with mindfulness and compassion, we can transform our emotional lives. We no longer need to be controlled by our emotions, but instead, we can experience them as they come and go, with a sense of peace and balance. In this way, we can free ourselves from the endless cycle of emotional suffering and experience the deep, abiding calm that comes from understanding our inner world. So, as you explore the Buddhist approach to emotions, remember that emotions are not enemies to be conquered but natural experiences to be understood. With mindfulness, detachment, and compassion, you can navigate your emotions with greater ease, clarity, and peace. In our daily lives, emotions can often feel like a powerful force, sweeping us away and controlling our reactions. Whether it's a surge of anger, overwhelming sadness, or uncontainable joy, these emotions shape how we perceive the world and how we respond to it. However, one of the central teachings in Buddhism revolves around the concept of emotional detachment, which doesn't mean cutting yourself off from your feelings, but rather, learning to manage them effectively and without losing control. Emotional detachment in Buddhism encourages us to observe our emotions without letting them dictate our actions. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in front of a turbulent river. The river is rushing, and its waters are chaotic and unpredictable. If you jump into the river, you'll be swept away, carried along with its current. However, if you stand on the riverbank, you can watch the water flow without being dragged under. This imagery serves as a powerful metaphor for emotional detachment. Instead of being swept away by the flood of emotions, you stand apart, calmly observing, without becoming lost in them. This does not mean suppressing your feelings. In fact, Buddhism teaches that acknowledging our emotions is an important part of our journey to mindfulness. We don't pretend the anger doesn't exist or deny the sadness we might be experiencing. Instead, we practice mindfulness by observing these emotions as they arise, noticing how they feel in our body, and understanding that they are temporary. They are like clouds in the sky, they come and go. By cultivating awareness of our emotions, we begin to see them as transient states rather than permanent parts of our identity. When we allow our emotions to define us or control our actions, we often react impulsively. This can lead to decisions that we later regret, or words that we wish we could take back. But when we practice detachment, we create the space to respond thoughtfully rather than react mindlessly. In those moments of anger, for example, instead of lashing out, we take a step back, breathe deeply, and observe the anger without letting it take the reins. We recognize it as just one feeling in a vast sea of emotions, rather than the entirety of our experience. Buddhist teachings on detachment also emphasize the importance of understanding the impermanence of all things. Everything in life is constantly changing, including our emotions. Just as happiness can rise and fall, so too can sadness, frustration, and anxiety. When we grasp this truth, we are less likely to be controlled by the extremes of emotion. We learn to ride the waves of our feelings rather than letting them drown us. By accepting impermanence, we find that we are no longer as frightened or overwhelmed by our emotions. We become more resilient, more balanced, and more capable of handling life's challenges with calmness and clarity. A key practice in Buddhist mindfulness is the cultivation of equanimity. Equanimity is the ability to maintain a calm and balanced mind, no matter the circumstances. It's the ability to remain composed in the face of chaos, to stay grounded when the winds of emotion blow fiercely. This doesn't mean that we become cold or indifferent, rather, it means that we become steady in the midst of change. Equanimity is a mental state where we recognize our feelings, acknowledge their presence, but don't let them control our behavior. One of the most profound aspects of emotional detachment in Buddhism is the realization that our emotional states are not permanent fixtures of who we are. We are not defined by our anger, sadness, or joy. These emotions are simply passing experiences. When we understand this, we free ourselves from the prison of emotional reaction and begin to experience a deeper sense of peace. We can look at life with a sense of clarity, free from the turbulence of uncontrolled emotions. By practicing emotional detachment, we also begin to cultivate greater compassion. When we are not overwhelmed by our own emotions, we are better able to understand and empathize with the emotions of others. We can respond with kindness and wisdom, rather than reacting out of our own emotional turmoil. Detachment doesn't create distance from others, it actually brings us closer by allowing us to see them more clearly, without the distortion of our own emotional triggers. In conclusion, emotional detachment is not about becoming emotionless, but rather about mastering our emotions in a way that allows us to respond thoughtfully and with compassion. It is a practice of awareness, observation, and understanding. By embracing the Buddhist path of emotional detachment, we can learn to navigate our emotional landscape with grace, finding peace in the midst of life's inevitable ups and downs. Through this practice, we can maintain calm, clarity, and compassion in all situations, living a life that is more centered, balanced, and fulfilling. In the fast-paced world we live in, emotional turbulence is inevitable. The stresses of daily life, interpersonal conflicts, and unexpected challenges can easily overwhelm us, throwing us off balance and clouding our judgment. However, Buddhism offers a profound and time-tested solution to this inner chaos: meditation. Meditation is not merely a tool for relaxation, it is a gateway to emotional control and mental clarity, a practice that allows us to stay calm, balanced, and centered in the face of life's ups and downs. The core of Buddhist meditation lies in its ability to train the mind, transforming how we respond to emotions. Rather than being swept away by our feelings, whether it be anger, frustration, sadness, or even intense joy, we learn to observe these emotions without becoming entangled in them. In Buddhist teachings, the mind is often compared to a calm lake, with emotions being like stones thrown into the water. The ripples from these stones create temporary disturbances, but if we are mindful, we can allow them to fade away without letting them disturb the stillness of the lake. Meditation helps us develop this kind of mental stillness and equanimity, enabling us to remain composed no matter the emotional storm swirling around us. At its core, meditation teaches us how to observe our thoughts and feelings without identifying with them. When emotions arise, whether they are positive or negative, we typically react instinctively. However, through the practice of mindfulness meditation, we learn to pause before we react, creating space between stimulus and response. This moment of pause is crucial for emotional balance. In that moment, we can recognize our emotional state, acknowledge it, and decide how to respond in a measured, thoughtful way. Rather than reacting impulsively, yelling in anger, succumbing to fear, or overindulging in pleasure, we can choose to act with clarity, wisdom, and compassion. One of the most powerful tools within Buddhist meditation is the practice of breath awareness. Breathing is a natural, rhythmic process that we often take for granted, but in meditation, the breath becomes a focal point that helps to anchor us in the present moment. By paying close attention to each inhale and exhale, we can bring our awareness away from the chaos of the mind and into the tranquility of the body. This simple, yet profound practice allows us to calm the nervous system, reduce stress, and reset our emotional state. In moments of heightened emotion, simply returning to the breath can be a powerful antidote to overwhelm. The deep, steady rhythm of breathing signals to the body that it is safe to relax, helping to bring emotional balance back into focus. Beyond just breath work, guided meditation is another invaluable tool for cultivating emotional stability. In Buddhist practice, guided meditations often incorporate visualizations, mantras, or teachings designed to lead the practitioner toward greater peace and insight. These meditations help us to refocus our mind and cultivate a deep sense of calm. For example, guided meditations focused on compassion, such as the practice of loving kindness, metta, can help us foster positive emotional states like love, empathy, and forgiveness, counteracting negative emotions such as anger or resentment. By regularly engaging in these practices, we build emotional resilience, making it easier to respond with kindness and patience in difficult situations. Meditation also strengthens our ability to focus. In today's world, distractions are everywhere, and it's easy to become scattered or overwhelmed. However, through meditation, we learn to direct our attention in a purposeful and focused way. This improved focus allows us to maintain emotional balance, even in the face of stress or external pressure. For example, during a stressful conversation or confrontation, we can use the focused attention developed through meditation to remain grounded and centered, rather than losing ourselves in the heat of the moment. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness, the art of being fully present in each moment, is another integral part of meditation that supports emotional control. Mindfulness helps us develop a deeper awareness of our emotional responses as they arise. Instead of letting emotions pass unnoticed, mindfulness allows us to track the moment-by-moment shifts in our feelings, thoughts, and physical sensations. By recognizing when we are becoming agitated, anxious, or upset, we can address these emotions before they escalate. In this way, mindfulness acts as an early warning system, helping us regain our composure before we are swept away by our emotions. Through consistent meditation practice, we begin to notice a profound shift in how we handle our emotions. What once might have triggered an immediate outburst or an emotional breakdown can now be met with greater composure and clarity. Meditation allows us to approach life's challenges with a sense of equanimity, the ability to maintain mental calmness even when facing adversity. It teaches us that we are not the sum of our emotions, but rather the observers of those emotions. We can exist peacefully alongside our feelings, acknowledging them without allowing them to control us. Furthermore, the benefits of meditation extend beyond the individual. When we cultivate emotional balance within ourselves, we become more compassionate and understanding toward others. In Buddhist practice, this compassionate mindset is embodied in the concept of karuna, or the wish for all beings to be free from suffering. As we cultivate calm and clarity in our own minds, we naturally begin to act with greater empathy and kindness toward others, responding to their needs without judgment or irritation. In conclusion, meditation is an essential practice for cultivating emotional balance and control, especially within the context of Buddhist teachings. Through mindfulness, breath awareness, and guided meditation, we learn to observe our emotions without becoming overwhelmed by them. By practicing regularly, we can transform our emotional responses, reducing stress, increasing focus, and maintaining a sense of calm even in the most challenging situations. In this way, meditation becomes not just a way to manage our emotions but a pathway to greater peace, wisdom, and compassion in every aspect of our lives. In the fast-paced, often chaotic world we live in, it can feel almost impossible to maintain inner peace. With constant demands at work, emotional challenges in relationships, and personal struggles that never seem to let up, finding a sense of calm can feel like a distant dream. However, Buddhism offers a powerful and practical path toward achieving lasting peace, even in the midst of life's turbulence. By applying Buddhist principles such as mindfulness, emotional detachment, and emotional regulation, we can navigate life with greater ease, balance, and clarity. At the heart of Buddhist teachings is the concept of mindfulness. Mindfulness, simply put, is the practice of being fully present in each moment, without judgment. In today's world, our minds are often consumed by worries about the past or the future. We stress over what went wrong yesterday, or what might go wrong tomorrow. However, Buddhism teaches that true peace can only be found in the present moment. Mindfulness allows us to quiet the chatter of our minds and bring our focus back to the here and now. When we are mindful, we are not distracted by the emotional storms that may be swirling around us. We are present with our thoughts, feelings, and surroundings, allowing us to respond to life's challenges in a calm, thoughtful way. When we apply mindfulness to our daily lives, we begin to break the cycle of automatic reactions that often govern our behavior. For example, in moments of stress at work or tension in relationships, mindfulness teaches us to pause before reacting. Rather than impulsively reacting to a stressful email, a heated argument, or a sudden challenge, mindfulness encourages us to take a step back, breathe, and observe our feelings before acting. This pause, however brief, is incredibly powerful. It allows us to respond thoughtfully rather than react in a way that might escalate the situation or leave us feeling regretful afterward. Buddhism also teaches us the power of emotional detachment. However, emotional detachment is not about disconnecting from our feelings or suppressing them. It's about recognizing our emotions without becoming overly attached to them. In modern life, we often let our emotions define us. If we feel angry, we may allow that anger to control our behavior, clouding our judgment. If we feel sad, we might let that sadness dictate our actions, retreating from the world or withdrawing into ourselves. But Buddhist detachment allows us to experience our emotions fully without being consumed by them. We can feel anger or sadness without allowing those emotions to define who we are or how we act. Detachment does not mean becoming cold or indifferent, rather, it means recognizing that emotions are temporary and ever-changing. They are like the waves in the ocean, constantly rising and falling. When we practice emotional detachment, we acknowledge the emotion, but we do not allow it to dictate our responses. Instead, we allow the emotion to pass through us, observing it without judgment. This practice enables us to maintain emotional balance, regardless of what life throws our way. This principle is particularly relevant in the workplace, where stress and pressure are often constant companions. Deadlines, conflicts with colleagues, and the demands of leadership can lead to overwhelming emotions. But by practicing mindfulness and detachment, we can create space between the stressors of the job and our emotional reactions. Rather than letting frustration or stress dictate our actions, we can respond with clarity and calm. This not only helps us maintain our own peace of mind but also fosters a more positive and productive environment for those around us. In relationships, emotional detachment can also be transformative. Whether in friendships, family dynamics, or romantic relationships, emotions can run high, and misunderstandings can easily arise. We may find ourselves getting defensive, angry, or hurt by the actions of others. However, by applying mindfulness and detachment, we learn to respond to others with compassion rather than reacting impulsively. Mindfulness allows us to listen more attentively, without judgment, and respond with understanding. Detachment, on the other hand, helps us avoid taking things personally. When we detach from our emotional reactions, we no longer see ourselves as the center of every interaction. Instead, we can view the situation objectively, making space for calm, reasoned responses. Even in the face of personal struggles, Buddhism offers powerful tools for emotional regulation. Life is full of unexpected challenges: illness, loss, financial difficulty, or simply the ups and downs of daily life. These challenges can trigger a range of emotions, from fear and anxiety to grief and frustration. However, by cultivating mindfulness and emotional detachment, we can face these difficulties with a sense of inner strength. We learn to approach life's challenges with the understanding that, just like our emotions, these circumstances are impermanent. Difficult times come and go, and by practicing mindfulness, we can remain anchored in the present moment, free from the anxiety of what might happen next. Buddhism also teaches the importance of compassion, both for others and for ourselves. When we practice mindfulness and detachment, we create the space to cultivate compassion in our hearts. We become more understanding of the struggles of others, and we are less likely to react with judgment or frustration. Similarly, by practicing self-compassion, we give ourselves the grace to experience difficult emotions without self-criticism. Instead of judging ourselves for feeling angry, sad, or stressed, we simply acknowledge those emotions with kindness and understanding, allowing ourselves to process them without shame. Incorporating Buddhist teachings into our daily lives doesn't require major changes or dramatic shifts in behavior. It is about gradually integrating these principles into the fabric of our existence. By committing to mindfulness, emotional detachment, and self-compassion, we begin to transform how we respond to life's challenges. Whether at work, in relationships, or when facing personal struggles, these practices allow us to maintain emotional balance and achieve lasting peace. In conclusion, Buddhism offers practical and transformative tools for emotional regulation and inner peace. Through mindfulness, emotional detachment, and compassion, we can navigate the complexities of modern life with greater calm and clarity. By applying these teachings to our everyday experiences, we can achieve lasting peace, no matter what life throws our way. Whether you are seeking peace at work, in relationships, or within yourself, the path of Buddhism provides a roadmap for emotional balance and lasting tranquility.